The country has always been ripe for it. I think we have just been a little bit distracted by so many things that were avoidable. This was the way Nigeria was planned when I was a child. When Chief Obafemi Awolowo served in Gowon's government, you had 5-year development plans. So we knew what was going to happen. We knew. So the country has always been, the country was ripe for this decades ago. We just lost focus. We were easily distracted. And that's where we are going back to let people understand that if you take the A1, A2, A3, and A4, the A1 is the Lagos-Ibadan, Oyo-Ogbomosho, Ilorin-Jeba, all the way to Sokoto, Ilela. The A2 is from Warri, Sapele, Benin, Auchi, Kene, Lokoja, all the way to Katsina. A3 is the Port Harcourt, Enugu, through Makurdi, all the way to Yobe. The A4 is the Calabar, through Makurdi, somewhere at the back there, through to Maiduguri. All of those roads from the south originate from a port, and they all end up in a border city in the north. If you fix those roads, you've more or less defined the arterial network. And then the 7 roads that crisscross them on an east to west basis, from top to bottom. So, and once you can put that out and explain that to Nigerians, they will understand how each state is actually connected by this. So, and that's what we do. All of these are now done graphically on a map, where our bridges are, where our depots are, where our farm produce is coming from. Roads don't exist in vacuum. They exist for the purpose of driving an economy. Where is that economy going? Moving goods from the ports in the south to supply the north and to do export business through the Sahel. And conversely, to move goods, food, stuff, cattle from north down to the south to the port for export through the sea. And to move people, and to move them on an east-west basis as well. So that's for me is basic. You can't do things without a plan, without order. I don't work in a disorderly fashion. It might take time to give you the results, but I need to be clear what my methods are, so that I'm not repeating once the method statement is defined, and that's what takes time. Implementation is easier to do. I think it is not that they took off. I think first we must, again, you see, when you work with leadership that has integrity, it's a store of value. Many of them probably and certainly worked with the president when he ran PTF. So they knew that he was a man of value. They know his vice is also a man of value. So leveraging on that credibility, and we said to them, this government will not owe you for 4 years anymore. We will pay you every quarter, even if it's just 1 kobo. You will get something. That is a major turnaround. It is major change from unpaid debts of 4 years. And we haven't defaulted. Every quarter, we pay something. So the first quarter for this budget 2017 that was released, we paid out 57 billion to our contract. It's not enough, but nobody can tell you I haven't gotten something. That's a different thing from I have not received anything for 4 years. See, many miles away. When you see that the economy has grown out of recession, you have to connect the dots. Where are the areas of growth? First of all, it talks about construction. It also talks about agri. But most significantly, it talks about mining. Mining had not grown for a long time. It was the injection of capital through the contracts that spiked the growth in mining. Where are the sectors that were growing? It was sand, granite, sharp sand, laterite, that constituted the bulk of the growth in mining. You don't mine those things to eat. You mine them for construction. So this is the connection. Roads in Apapa are not always failing. They failed a long time ago. I knew Apapa as a child. I knew Roxy Cinema in Apapa, so we used to drive in and out of Apapa from Surulere. It was like a 5-minute, 7-minute drive. Once you cross the bridge, you were in Erikmo. So, but we left those bridges, we left those roads built in the 70s. No maintenance. We stopped using the rail tracks. We allowed Nigerian railways almost to virtually shut down. We started selling the land on railway compound, and we started using tankers. Those bills were not designed to take the cargo axle load we now subjected them to. As if that wasn't bad enough, there were no tank farms in Apapa when I was a child. They were on the tank farms were closer to Ijora than Creek Road where they are now. And they used to discharge their cargo by fuel wagons on rail. So that's what afflicted Apapa essentially. The abandonment of the rail and the expansion of the port to Tinkan. Tinkan Island Port was built in the 70s, teenager then. So that's what then put pressure on Apapa without maintenance, without rail. It was only a matter of time. So what you then have is that every time they fix the road, because of the tonnage, it will collapse again. So we are hoping now that with the plans by the Ministry of Transportation to restore the rail, whatever we do now will serve longer because there will be an alternative which will be the rail track. Certainly, we are developing way bridges now in 17 places, I think. 17 locations across the country. We have finished 10. But way bridges are just the beginning. The regulation really is that if there is any vessel or vehicle that is overloaded, you have to take off the cargo and store it. So you need warehouses. Now, we never had the warehouses. So I've insisted now that we must now design the warehouses, put them up for concession. We don't want to run warehouses. So, but that creates opportunity for people to invest, own warehouses, charge for storage, charge for retransportation, and so on. So it's a work in progress. We are also seeking to enforce the axle load legislation that is now effective throughout the whole of West Africa. So we are the only country left to comply. And we've gotten FAQ approval to ratify the treaty that was passed and that we signed and domesticate it. So we are in the process now of making regulations that upgrade from the old regulations in our books to the current standards. So there's a lot of work simultaneously going on as we are rehabilitating our roads. We are getting them ready to compete on a new set of rules. Well, we were caught really in a blind. There was no budgetary provision. The provisions that were ultimately approved in budget was only about 2 billion naira. The rough estimates for the road were in the region of about over 100 billion because it's a 360 kilometer thereabout length road from Abuja to Kaduna to Zaria to Kano. And dual carriage lanes both ways. And if you don't have the budgetary provision to at least pay the mobilization fee, why should you award the contract? In fact, the law prohibits you from doing so. So we're hoping that when the environment request is considered or in the 2018 budget, they will be able to properly provision. Also, a lot of pre-procurement work has been done. It's just that leg that is holding it back. In the interim, what we are trying to do is to do some emergency repairs like we did for the Abuja-Kaduna Highway during the airport repairs, at least to minimize risks to commuters and so on. No 16 billion was given in cash. Cash is what you return. You don't return a budget. A budget is just a provision. An authority to say you can spend up to this amount if you get it. We never got the money. As I speak to you, Early Works 4, which was awarded to the contractor in January this year, has not been funded. So we're getting close to it. Finance is responding to our funding request. Hopefully we will conclude soon enough. So I think that's the much that needs to be said with respect to that. But we are also developing much more wholesome strategies, because the compensation claims also by landowners who will be affected by the route. And all of what we are even talking about is just the bridge. The link road that will connect the bridge from the Asaba-Onitsha ends in Delta and Anambra states has just been designed. So again, that is not part of the contract, because you can't have a bridge just hanging without landing. So this is the work to be done. First, let's deal with request for handing over. It's a welcome request. It's consistent with our policy, which has been demonstrated with Kaduna, with Lagos State as well, and we are asking more states to come and take federal roads that are already within your metropolis, that have become municipal. The city has grown to go and meet them. You take care of them. But I think there's a caveat to this one, which is that you cannot transfer appropriation made at federal level to a state government. It's not possible. It's a legal impossibility. Because as I said, an appropriation is just a budgetary provision. You can spend so much. If the state government wants a grant in aid, it's a different thing. But we just have to use the right terminologies if that statement was correctly credited to the state government. And the process for doing that is also to write to Mr. President, or write to me, because the power to actually recommend a road for transfer to a state is the power of the minister, not the power of the president, under the Federal Highways Act. But the recommendation must then go to the president, who will consider it in council with the financial consequences relating to it. Now, those financial consequences are not the prerogative of the minister. They are the prerogative of the president. Every commitment of the government to rebuild the Northeast that requires infrastructure support is something we are committed to. I can tell you that in terms of the works side of our ministry alone, there are 47 projects under our ministry in the works side alone that are part of the Northeast Redevelopment Initiative, and 36 of them are in various stages of implementation. 11 are being considered for procurement under the 2017 budget. And that is in works alone. There are those in power. I've spoken to some transmission projects in Borno and all of those places. I've spoken to the Kashimbila Dam in Taraba, as a part of the Northeast, and so on as well. There's quite a number of things that we're dealing with there. And there's also housing construction in Taraba, in Gombe, and all of those places all the way down. I don't think that it is correct that the policies are not working. I think what I would concede is that implementation has not been sufficiently rigorous. And again, I am a convert of planning. And if you plan very well, you will see results. So all of these corridors are part of our plan to recover our right of way. It's one thing to have good roads. It's another thing to use the roads well. I've spoken about axle load abuse. Right of way abuse also are some of these things that we need to do. We have detailed photographs of many locations that we took during our tour. And we are still looking at how best to ensure that we can remove all of these obstructions on the highway. Persuasion is a very strong strategy for implementation. So we're working with the unions who own these vehicles. We're working with the Ministry of Labor who supervises them to get their buy-in, because by voluntary action, we can gain a lot of traction. Of course, there will be enforcement, and so we are also looking at whether we are going to do it on a zonal basis, set of zonal enforcement units. We are also, and all of this, whether it's personnel, whether it's fuel, whether it's patrol vehicles, whether it's towing vehicles, whether it's removal vehicles, all of those things cost money. So we're still planning all of those logistics as a basis to then say we are budgeting for them. So that's why I said the real issue is not the lack of policy, it's the consistency of the implementation. And the consistency of the implementation is defined by how you really plan it. Can you see it from end to end? We see it, and we think we can do it. FEMA is still functional, but like everything and many things, we need to strengthen FEMA in terms of personnel, in terms of budget, in terms of orientation, and in terms of preparation and implementation delivery capacity. So it's a work in progress. Those roads are under contract. We have had some challenges with financing those roads. We have tried PPPs in 2006 on Lagos-Ibadan. It didn't work. We ended up in court. I think the first time that any sizable amount of money was spent on that road in almost 10 years, at once, that's the critical thing, was under the 2016 budget, which was the first full budget of the Buhari administration, when we spent 29 billion on that road for the first time in 1 year. 29 billion, the impact was almost instantaneous. People started saying that their travel time was better. Lagos to Ibadan, you could travel in less than 2 hours, from 4 hours or 5 hours in some cases, but we haven't finished our work there. Now let's remember that this road on its own is over 100 kilometers. Oyo-Ogbomosho is a bypass that is being constructed afresh to take traffic out of the city. The contractor is there. But if they run out of money, or during the rainy season when they slow down to skeletal work in order to conserve cost and reduce waste that comes with their materials being washed away, that comes with things being readied and then rain suddenly wiping them away and preferring to work later, that doesn't mean that they are not working again. Towards the end of the year, especially in the last 1.5 months of the year, you will see a better response, hopefully, subject to funding. Funding is the biggest problem we have, and timing of the funding so that it doesn't come during rainy season. But I hope that we can again give Nigerians a better journey time experience at the end of this year, those who are traveling for Christmas. I think that those who are fair to us will acknowledge that their journey time experience in 2016 was better than their journey time experience in 2015. We want 2017 to be a better journey time experience than 2016. Well, I have driven the East-West Road, and if it is the same road, sizable parts have been completed. The parts that have not been completed are the parts in Bayelsa and some parts towards Warri on the other side, where the Bayelsa side was largely due to security issues at that time. People were kidnapped, workers were kidnapped, and they had to demobilize, and then later funding just dried up. And I think it's important again to make this point that we need to understand the nature of federal roads. They are long highways, big roads. They don't get constructed in 1 year, oftentimes not in 2 or 3 years. And if you know the experience with our municipal roads that governors construct that are usually 5-8 kilometers, they take up to 18-20 months even after the contractor mobilizes there. And if anybody needs any example, look at the Abuja Airport Road. That road was awarded, I think, around 2008 or 2009. President Yar'Adua awarded that road. It hasn't finished. It's barely 60 kilometers, but it's 10 lanes. So let's dimension what is going on there. If it's 60 kilometers, you're actually building 600 kilometers of road network. It doesn't finish in 1 day. So most of these roads that you are talking about, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, for example, being expanded from 2 to 3 lanes with the setback and everything. So if you do that expansion, you have 3 lanes over 100 kilometers, another 3 lanes over 100 kilometers. So it's 300 kilometers going, 300 kilometers coming. That's a 600-kilometer road. Really and truly. So even if you had all of the money in one place, you still have to do the man hours. So these things take time to deliver. Again, let me start from the last one about road signage that we call road furniture. And it's just a lowering of standards. We have accepted lower standards, and this government has said it will not have it anymore. Our roads must compete with global standards with the appropriate signage. We must benefit from the opportunities that come with signage. That is the opportunity for subcontractors, small companies, to get involved in big projects and do the installation of the highway furniture and do the lane marking. So you will see a rollout of that as we go on. These are some of the experiences that we want to change, and also the benefits that should come from them. As far as manhole covers are concerned, and generally damage to public property, not just manhole covers, people damage gas pipes, people damage transformers because they are angry. And it's just a mentality that must change. So we can't truly continue with the mindset that we can damage public property and still complain that it is not serving us. It just doesn't make sense. So people must change. This is what all of the civil society groups must own in terms of helping us to drive this change. This is what the religious institutions must also take up on their various pulpits and sermons. This is what the schools and the families must take up in the classrooms and in the homesteads. It's an enlightenment that all of us own public property. We must protect it because it is serving us. Well, part of the problem of abuse I think we have dealt with extensively is just also to say that bridges, like everything that is human, is a depreciating asset, whether it's a home, whether it's a shoe that you make, whether it's a bridge, a depreciating asset. Only our Creator has perfection. So when you build assets, you maintain them. Those bridges have suffered from lack of maintenance. We put up a maintenance program that will cost about 277 billion over 3 years, and that is for all of the bridges across Nigeria, not just the Third Mainland, all of the bridges. And we face them from the very bad critical need of maintenance to the not so critical to the one that have longer thresholds that we can come back to later. So if we have the appropriation, we have a plan. So we've been very methodical in planning what needs to be done. We have all of those bridges on a map so you can see them at a glance, which is critical, which is not critical, which is severe, which we must quickly deal with. No, we covered 34 and then we quickly had to come back to come and do, I think it was our budget defense or something like that. We had to come back to come and do our budget defense, and then by the time we finished, the rains had started. There were other things that demanded my attention. I needed to pay attention to some other things. So, but the state governors and I are in touch. So, and before the year is over, I will cover the 2 states. So, in fact, the program has been worked out. Okay, let me just say that the North Central axis is very critical. We have a couple of roads there from Obajana to Kaba, from Abuja, Abaji, Lokoja, from Benin, Okene, Makurdi, Lafia, and so on and so forth. Nasarawa, Lafia, Kefi Road. So we have North Central under focus. Unfortunately, most of the roads have gone into some kind of disrepair. The Abuja, Kaduna also is part of the road that connects. The Niger State and Nasarawa states are so critical to connectivity of the country. So is Ilorin, so is everywhere is important. But in response to the Benin, Okene, Lokoja Highway, we have contractors. There was one of the sites that I visited when we went on tour. The Okene side where Auchi, where we've had Dantata and Sawu, has been particularly challenging because of budgetary provisions. We are hoping now that we can overcome that. I met with them early in September and they promised me that they are on site and they are preparing to improve the quality of road experience of commuters as we go into dry weather. They have been affected by financing. As I said, the big problem is we don't have enough money as a country, and it affects all of the ministries, departments, and agencies. I think the principle about reform really is that the president, as the holder of the prerogative, whether to pay you or not to pay you, I said, let us quantify what we already inherited as debt. And that's a lot of money. For roads alone, it was almost 500 billion, half a trillion for this thing. And then there are debts that were inherited from power. But the government, through the Ministry of Finance, has gotten approval from FAQ to issue promissory notes to pay the debt over time. We now need to get National Assembly to approve that process, and then we can begin to deal with those debts. In the interim, Mr. President has said that we should suspend handing over roads to states who want to be refunded, but that we should not, and he will not stop any state governor who is sufficiently able to say, I will repair it because it affects my people. Of course, we want those kind of collaborations, but Mr. President is saying, let me pay what I owe first, what I met, before we add more to it. So some states have said to us, give us, we don't mind, we will deal with it.